Hello everyone. Today I'm coming to you all with a very small update in the case of 6-year-old Jalayah Eason, who was found unresponsive in the closet of her mother's apartment. From everything gathered, her mother, Lynija Eason, would actually beat Jalayah and her siblings, and there were multiple different instances where this occurred. And there were also multiple different instances where concern was raised, but nothing really seemed to happen. However, little Jalayah wasn't saved. I actually covered this case previously, so if you want to see the entire timeline of events and the whole case in full, I will have it linked down below, as well as a little button you can click up above here. I definitely recommend checking that out first because this video won't make sense if you haven't watched the first one. So at 4 a.m. on May 26th of this year, police would discover little Jalayah bruised and unconscious inside of a closet in her mother's apartment, as I said. A doctor noting, and I quote, "Fresh abrasions under her left arm, scar-like markings on her wrists and back, and multiple bruises and old lacerations," end quote. And she was pronounced dead less than an hour later at Lincoln Hospital. Her mother, Lynija, would then be arrested. Now, in my previous video, I had a lot of questions, including where was the father in all of this? And I did talk about the father quite a bit in my last video. I ended up finding his Facebook. We talked a little bit about some stuff that he posted as well. And it did seem, especially from his Facebook, that he did see his children occasionally.
I love you.
His children being Jalayah and her brother. They also had a younger sister that was from a different father, it seemed. Well, it now turns out that Jalayah and her brother's father, Ronald Branch, is finally speaking out about her death, or I would call it her murder.
Every day I wake up, every day I go through this, I think about my daughter every day. Every day.
According to Ronald, he had no clue what Lynija was doing to their children. He's been fighting for custody this entire time, and when Jalayah ended up dying, he found out that his name wasn't even on Jalayah's birth certificate. So then he had to wait on results from a paternity test. And according to Ronald, he needs all of this information and more, not only to bury Jalayah, but to get custody of her brother, who is still alive. According to NY1, and I quote, "Last fall, a complaint was made to the city's Administration for Children's Services alleging Eason's son had been a victim of excessive corporal punishment, inadequate food, clothing, and shelter, and that he had swelling, dislocation, and sprains," end quote, which is just heartbreaking. We talked a lot in my previous video as well about everything that was happening to not only Jalayah, but her brother. And there was a lot of stuff that was happening to her brother. I'm pretty sure teachers also had called children's services after seeing the state that her brother would come to school in. Or he wouldn't even come to school at all. There were so many times where he wouldn't even be at school, which was also an issue that raised alarms. Now, despite all of this, as we again had talked about, it seems like these claims were apparently unfounded, but we all know that they weren't. And in my opinion, the system kept failing these children over and over again. Now, at this point, it's been months and no cause of death has been released for Jalayah. She also still hasn't been laid to rest, and no one's been arrested for her murder. Ronald being quoted saying, and I quote, "I guess she abused him so much that they would be like, 'Daddy, we can't tell you what happened because if we tell you, we're going to get in trouble when we get back home. I want to know what's taking the court so long. I want to know what's taking the DNA so long. I want to know, like, why is it taking so long for an autopsy to come back?'" End quote. Now, when Ronald found out that his daughter had died, and he ended up being made aware of the state of the apartment that they were living in, which, if you would remember, it was absolutely deplorable. There were insects, rotting food, garbage, soiled clothing. It smelled like urine and feces. Well, when Ronald found out about the state of that apartment and the fact that CPS hadn't removed his children despite kind of checking in on them periodically and there being investigations with his children, he said, and I quote, "Remove my children from their home, period. If y'all had seen the neglect that my kids were going through, why didn't you remove them and let me fight for them there?" End quote. And he's not wrong. CPS was involved with this family. There were multiple reports, but everything was allegedly unfounded, despite us now knowing that it shouldn't have been unfounded because of the state of the apartment, the fact of the state of the children and what was going on with them, what was happening to them. Neighbors heard these kids screaming all of the time and being tossed around in that apartment and abused. Yet CPS did nothing. Now, as far as I've seen, Ronald's youngest son and his sister are currently in foster care. And as far as I've seen, they're still in foster care at this point in time. Now, they could have maybe been placed with a different family member, but I didn't see that. There's honestly not that much information on this case, which is sad. But honestly, I can't imagine what these poor children have gone through in their little young lives. To be allegedly abused by their mother their entire little lives, to watch their sister be killed in front of them, and to now have to be living with strangers. I mean, I can't imagine the level of trauma that these children have experienced. The information we know at this current time is that Ronald was supposed to be in court on August 31st, and this is where a judge was supposed to confirm whether or not he was going to be allowed to bury Jalayah. Now, I didn't see any follow-up information on this, and I also didn't see any follow-up information on a custody hearing he was supposed to have in September. So if you have any information on that, let me know down below, because as I said, there's really not that much information on this case. I've seen some people reporting on TikTok and comments on TikTok about Jalayah's case and updates on it, of how Lynija was the one who ended up being able to bury Jalayah, which, if so, I I have no words. I have no words with just the injustice that's happening in this case. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't see any like official sources reporting on that. And honestly, just in general, this case is very undercovered. I haven't heard anyone else, like any of the bigger creators, cover this case. And I'm wondering if that's because there's not that much information on it. But nonetheless, Jalayah's story needs to be told out there. I think these children deserve justice, and it's the fact that this happens every day out there. At this very moment, there are children living in these conditions still to this day somewhere out there right now. And it shouldn't be like that. These little children have no way to defend themselves. CPS doesn't take their cases seriously, in my opinion, or they just don't investigate enough. I understand wanting to keep children with the parents and with the family, but not when it's like this. When there's teachers reporting things and seeing things, and then CPS does nothing, what's the point of having these mandated reporters if nothing happens when they report? What I want to know is how you're all feeling about these updates. I wish there was more to update on. I know there were a few people asking for updates for Jalayah, and this is all we really have right now. But let me know if there's anything that I didn't find or any more context that you can include down below. And let's have a discussion down below. I'll be in the comment section chatting with you all. And as always, if there are any other cases that you want me to cover, let me know down below as well, and I will look into them. This week coming up, I'm actually be covering a few more cases out of Edmonton, Alberta. I actually went down a whole rabbit hole after the Amber Tukaro case, and I am invested now, so I hope you're excited for that. But I always love recommendations because there will be more weeks to come. I love knowing what y'all want to see. So as I said, let me know down below any cases, and as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I will see you in the next video.